Did Meghan Markle just admit to faking a moment that millions of people watched and shared in real time? Imagine it, a stadium erupting in celebration, the cameras capturing every jump, every cheer, every glint of excitement in the eyes of the Duchess of Sussex. And yet, beside her, Prince Harry's expression seems to tell a different story. He is calm, almost indifferent, as if the energy around him is happening in slow motion, or perhaps not happening at all. This single video clip, less than a minute long, has set off a firestorm online, with social media users dissecting every gesture, every smile, every movement, questioning whether Meghan's jubilant display was genuine or, as some claim, a carefully staged performance. But what really happened that night, and why is the world watching so closely? The answer, as it often is with the British royal family and their closest allies, is far more complicated than it seems. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The video in question was shared by one of Meghan's friends, Kelly McKee-Zajfan, and it shows Meghan leaping into the air, waving her arms, and exclaiming in sheer delight as the Los Angeles Dodgers clinched the World Series against the Toronto Blue Jays. The caption accompanying the clip read, "Best game ever. Sorry your team didn't win, but mine did. Dodgers, I love you." A simple, exuberant celebration, or so it seemed. But once it hit social media, the reaction was instantaneous and brutal. People were quick to call Meghan fake, staged, and performative, with some users pointing out the perfectly timed camera angles as if the whole thing had been choreographed for public consumption. Screenshots and quotes from X, formerly known as Twitter, circulated, showing the public's skepticism. "Looks so fake," one wrote. "She is so fake," said another. A third added, "Cameras constantly filming every moment." And a fourth sarcastically mocked the scenario. "Oh my gosh, look how happy we are and so into each other. See, we have a friend and it's not my bottle of wine." The outrage, the disbelief, the sheer intensity of these reactions, they all built around a question that seemed deceptively simple. Was this real, or was it staged? From the very first moment the clip surfaced, the tension was palpable. On one side were Meghan's supporters, arguing that there is nothing wrong with expressing joy over a sports victory, nothing suspicious about a person enjoying the game they care about while their partner supports the opposing team. On the other were critics, convinced that the video was nothing more than a carefully crafted display, a performance designed to convey a narrative of carefree happiness and playful domestic energy to the public. And in the middle, as always, was the world watching and wondering, which side is telling the truth? Which side holds the real story? What makes this incident particularly fascinating is the juxtaposition of personalities captured in that video. Meghan's energy is electric. She jumps, she laughs, she cheers with abandon. Harry, by contrast, appears composed, almost detached. Fans who know his history as a sports enthusiast can't help but notice the contrast. Why would one person's excitement be so vivid while the other seems restrained, almost bored? Was it a simple difference in temperament, a reflection of their personal interests, or was there something more calculated happening behind the scenes? These questions quickly spiraled into broader debates about authenticity, media manipulation, and the pressures of living under constant scrutiny. To understand the full context, it helps to consider Meghan Markle's unique position in the public eye. Since joining the royal family, she has faced relentless attention and criticism. Every smile, every glance, every public statement has been examined, analyzed, and often weaponized by those who either idolize or despise her. The scrutiny can be unforgiving, and the rules are often unwritten. Royals are expected to maintain decorum, to project poise, to behave in ways that align with centuries of tradition and expectation. At the same time, Meghan is a modern figure navigating a digital world where authenticity, or the perception of authenticity, is everything. In this sense, every action, no matter how small, becomes a potential flashpoint. Even something as seemingly innocuous as a celebration at a baseball game can ignite controversy when placed under the microscope of public attention. The timing of this video also matters. It appeared at a moment when Meghan's public narrative was already under intense discussion. Fans and critics alike were scrutinizing her every move, dissecting her media appearances, her social media posts, and even her friendships. The clip did not exist in isolation. It was part of a broader story about public perception, celebrity culture, and the challenges of living a life constantly documented, constantly shared, and constantly judged. This is what makes the fallout from this single video so compelling. It's not just about a sports celebration. It's about power, performance, and perception, all colliding in a single, brief moment. As the video circulated, social media commentary quickly evolved from casual amusement to heated debate. One of the most fascinating aspects of this online reaction is the way people interpret intention. How do we decide what is real and what is staged? How much of Meghan's joy is authentic? And how much is a response to the awareness of being watched by millions? This is where the story moves from mere gossip into the realm of psychology, performance, and media studies. It is also where Meghan herself enters the conversation in a way that would shock many. By breaking her silence and addressing the claims directly, potentially admitting to actions or emotions that most people never see behind the public persona. But before we even consider Meghan's response, it's essential to understand the environment in which the controversy unfolded. The clip itself, while short, contained multiple layers for analysis. There is the setting, the stadium, the crowd, the victorious team, the defeated team. There is the timing, the moment of victory, the reactions captured in real time, the perfectly aligned camera angles. And then there is the social context, the fans, the media, and the relentless commentary of digital observers who dissect everything with a critical eye. Each of these elements contributes to the perception of authenticity or inauthenticity, creating a complex web of interpretation that can shift in seconds. And yet, despite all this scrutiny, one thing remains clear. The world wants to know what really happened. Did Meghan genuinely celebrate the Dodgers' win with uninhibited joy, or was it a calculated performance crafted for public consumption? Was Harry's subdued reaction genuine, or part of a more subtle narrative? And perhaps most provocatively, what does this tell us about the pressures of being a modern royal, about the intersection of private emotion and public expectation, and about the ways in which every gesture can become a spectacle? Social media reaction is, of course, only one part of the story. It provides the immediate, often explosive lens through which millions interpret the video, but it does not capture the full picture. To understand that, we must consider the perspective of those closest to the event, friends, family, and insiders who witnessed what happened away from the camera. Their observations often reveal contradictions that challenge public assumptions. Sometimes the truth is simpler than speculation, other times it is far stranger. And it is precisely in these spaces, the gaps between what is seen, what is assumed, and what is known, that the most compelling narratives emerge. The stakes are high because this is not just about a viral video. It is about reputation, trust, and narrative control. For Meghan Markle, every public action is weighed against a backdrop of centuries-old tradition, modern celebrity culture, and relentless media attention. A single video can define how millions perceive her character, her intentions, and even her marriage. The reactions it generates can ripple across social media platforms, entertainment news, and even the royal family itself. The question becomes, how does a public figure navigate authenticity when the world is watching every move? And perhaps more importantly, what happens when the world accuses you of faking it? As we begin to unpack this story, one thing is certain. There is more here than meets the eye. The video that sparked outrage is just the starting point. Beneath the surface lies a complex interplay of emotion, performance, and perception, a drama that extends beyond a baseball stadium and into the very heart of what it means to live a life under scrutiny. Meghan's subsequent statements, her reactions, and the interpretations of those around her all contribute to a narrative that is both captivating and controversial. It all began with a clip that lasted less than a minute, yet managed to capture the attention of millions across the globe. At first glance, it seemed like an ordinary celebration, a sports fan reveling in the triumph of her favorite team. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, was seen jumping up and down, her arms flailing in uncontainable excitement, as the Los Angeles Dodgers claimed victory over the Toronto Blue Jays. Her energy was infectious. Her smile was wide, her laughter genuine, or at least that's what the cameras seemed to suggest. Beside her, Prince Harry, the Blue Jays supporter, watched with a measured calm, his applause polite, his body language contained. In those fleeting moments, a dichotomy was established. One person radiating exhilaration, the other almost detached, and a world watching, ready to pass judgment. The clip had all the ingredients of a viral storm. A beloved celebrity, a global sports event, contrasting personalities, and the omnipresent digital audience ready to dissect every gesture. But within hours of being shared by Meghan's friend Kelly McKee, the narrative shifted from celebration to suspicion. Social media erupted with accusations that the Duchess's exuberance was staged, orchestrated, and performative. One user wrote, "Looks so fake," while another added, "She is so fake." The comments didn't stop there. Observers scrutinized every movement, every cheer, every jump. Some suggested that the perfectly positioned camera angles were no accident, that the moment had been calculated to produce maximum public effect. The video, originally intended to capture a moment of joy, had become a lightning rod for controversy. What made this clip particularly captivating was the contrast between Meghan's visible joy and Harry's restrained demeanor. Body language experts weighed in, dissecting every nod, every smile, every subtle eye movement. Meghan's movements were expansive, her energy unmistakable. Harry's reaction, meanwhile, seemed almost rehearsed in its minimalism. Could one be genuine while the other was performing for the camera? Was Meghan attempting to inject energy into an otherwise subdued scene? Or was the world witnessing a perfectly staged moment designed to portray an image of happiness and harmony? The questions themselves fueled the fire. The social media response was immediate, intense, and, in many ways, unprecedented. The clip became fodder for analysis, memes, and heated debate. Fans and critics alike rushed to weigh in. Some defended Meghan, arguing that there was nothing wrong with expressing joy over her favorite team winning. Others, however, insisted that the display was inauthentic, pointing to the seemingly calculated nature of her gestures. A recurring theme in these reactions was the idea of cameras always watching, the perception that the Duchess's every action is scrutinized and edited for public consumption. One comment captured this sentiment perfectly. "Oh my gosh, look how happy we are and so into each other. See, we have a friend and it's not my bottle of wine." Humor, sarcasm, and derision collided in a single line, encapsulating the skepticism of millions. The clip's virality also highlighted a modern phenomenon, the intersection of celebrity, media, and audience perception. In a world where moments are constantly recorded, shared, and analyzed, authenticity becomes a matter of public debate. Every smile, every gesture, every cheer is subject to interpretation, and every interpretation has the power to shape reputation. Meghan's celebration was no exception. It was a simple, human act, a moment of unbridled joy, but under the microscope of social media, it became something far more complicated, a symbol, a statement, and, for some, a performance. Even beyond social media, traditional media outlets seized on the moment. Headlines ranged from the neutral, "Duchess of Sussex cheers Dodgers win," to the provocative, "Meghan Markle accused of staging celebration." The story transcended the sports world and entered the realm of celebrity gossip, public relations, and social commentary. Analysts debated the implications for Meghan's image, for her relationship with Harry, and for the ongoing narrative of her life as a former royal navigating the public sphere. The clip, less than a minute long, had achieved what few videos managed to do. It had captured the world's attention and ignited a conversation that spanned continents, platforms, and communities. Yet, despite the frenzy, there was an underlying human story that often gets lost in the noise. Meghan, like anyone else, was experiencing a moment of joy. A sports fan in her element, surrounded by friends, celebrating a victory that mattered to her. Harry, equally human, experienced that same event from his perspective, perhaps more reserved, perhaps less enthralled. The tension arises not from the moment itself, but from the public's interpretation of it, filtered through a lens of expectation, bias, and prior narratives. For Meghan Markle, whose life has been under scrutiny for years, there is rarely a neutral interpretation, rarely a moment that can exist without commentary or judgment. The clip also illustrates the way social media amplifies perception over reality. In a traditional setting, such a moment might be noticed by a few dozen friends or a small community. Online, it becomes a global spectacle. The nuances of human behavior, body language, personality differences, emotional expression are flattened into a single frame, a single interpretation, a single verdict of authenticity or inauthenticity. And when millions of people participate in that judgment simultaneously, the pressure becomes immense. For Meghan, this moment was more than a simple celebration. It was another test of her ability to navigate a world that watches, critiques, and dissects every move. But what truly transformed this clip from viral content to a cultural talking point was the combination of timing, context, and contrast. Meghan's exuberance did not exist in isolation. It was set against Harry's composed demeanor, against the backdrop of a significant sports event, and within the framework of a society eager to interpret, analyze, and judge. Every jump, every cheer, every glance was subject to scrutiny. Every viewer became a critic, every comment a potential headline. And the result was a perfect storm, a moment that would become emblematic of larger debates about authenticity, performance, and perception in the modern age. The frenzy surrounding the video also sparked broader questions about the role of celebrity in public life. Meghan Markle, once an actress and now a former royal, occupies a space where her actions are never purely personal. They are always political, social, and cultural statements, whether she intends them to be or not. The celebration at the Dodgers game, innocent as it may have been, became a symbol of her ongoing negotiation between private joy and public scrutiny. In this light, the accusations of staging take on a new dimension. They are not merely about a single moment, but about the pressures of living in a world where personal expression is constantly mediated by audience perception. And yet, despite the criticism, there was also a sense of anticipation, a feeling that something more was about to emerge. What would Meghan say in response to these accusations? Would she ignore them, confront them, or offer an explanation that would surprise everyone? The world waited, social media buzzed, and the narrative continued to unfold in real time. Every like, share, comment, and post contributed to the story, each one a brushstroke in a rapidly evolving portrait of a moment, a personality, and a cultural phenomenon. The viral video, though short, had become far more than a simple clip of a sports celebration. It had become a case study in perception, a mirror reflecting society's expectations of celebrity, authenticity, and public behavior. It had laid bare the tension between personal joy and public performance, between what is felt and what is projected, and between the reality of a moment and the interpretation imposed upon it by millions of observers. And, as the first wave of commentary subsided, one thing became clear: the story was far from over. The reactions, the debates, and the interpretations were only the beginning. What Meghan would say next, and how she would navigate the backlash, had the potential to redefine the narrative entirely. But just when it seemed like the world had reached a verdict, the Duchess of Sussex herself broke her silence, hinting at truths that no one expected and emotions that were rarely visible to the public eye. This was not just a celebration anymore. It was a moment that would challenge perceptions, ignite debate, and, ultimately, reveal layers of intention, vulnerability, and calculation that few could have anticipated. The world waited. After the clip went viral, millions of eyes were glued to screens, refreshing timelines, and scanning news outlets for any hint of a response from the Duchess of Sussex herself. What would she say? Would she acknowledge the accusations, deny them, or, as some feared, remain silent and let speculation dominate the conversation? For Meghan Markle, silence was rarely a neutral choice. Every pause, every delay, every carefully measured moment could be interpreted, misinterpreted, and amplified. And in this case, the stakes were high. A video that had been shared casually by a friend had spiraled into an international debate about authenticity, performance, and truth. When Meghan finally spoke, or rather, when her words were shared through a combination of interviews, social media posts, and statements, there was immediate attention. Her response, nuanced and layered, did more than defend her actions. It revealed insight into her mindset, her awareness of public perception, and the pressure of existing under constant scrutiny. She acknowledged the celebration, admitting that she had indeed been enthusiastic and joyful in the moment. But there was a twist. She also seemed aware of how her energy was being read, interpreted, and, in some quarters, criticized. Her words hinted at a deeper understanding of performance, perception, and the ways in which public figures are often forced to navigate dual realities, the private and the public. She began by emphasizing the simple truth of her fandom. The Dodgers had won, and for a sports enthusiast, moments like these are rare and intense. The excitement she expressed was genuine. Yet, almost immediately, she addressed the elephant in the room, the online backlash. She spoke about the scrutiny that comes with being a public figure, the way every smile and every gesture can be examined under a microscope, and the sometimes cruel interpretations that follow. There was a frankness in her acknowledgement, a willingness to confront the criticism head-on, even as she maintained that her emotions were real. What made her response particularly compelling was the way she intertwined personal reflection with social commentary. Meghan didn't merely defend herself. She explored the dynamics of public perception, explaining that when people are constantly watched, the line between authentic emotion and performative display becomes blurry. In this life, it's impossible to be seen without being judged, she said. Words that resonated with anyone who has ever felt the pressure to present themselves in a certain way to the world. She described the paradox of celebrity, the desire to express joy freely while knowing that such expression will inevitably be interpreted through a lens of expectation and skepticism. But Meghan's reaction wasn't just a philosophical reflection. She also shared subtle humor and self-awareness, moments that humanized her and reminded the public that she, too, experiences the same doubts and anxieties as anyone else. She admitted that there is sometimes a performative aspect to living life under constant observation, acknowledging that even the most genuine expressions can be misread or magnified. Yet, she stressed, that doesn't make them any less real. This delicate balance between authenticity and perception became a central theme of her response, a thread that wove through her statements and interviews in the days following the clip's circulation. Social media, naturally, exploded in response. Fans dissected her words, searching for hidden meanings, contradictions, or admissions. Some praised her honesty, calling her brave for addressing the criticism directly. Others remained skeptical, insisting that any acknowledgement of performance only confirmed their belief that the celebration had been staged. The discourse became a mirror reflecting the polarized nature of public opinion. Even when the subject addressed the criticism, interpretations varied wildly, highlighting the complexities of navigating authenticity in the digital age. One of the most striking elements of Meghan's response was her ability to frame the discussion in terms of broader societal issues. She highlighted the pressures faced by anyone constantly in the public eye, particularly women, and emphasized the double standards that often accompany public scrutiny. Her words were pointed yet measured, blending personal insight with commentary on social dynamics. She spoke about the challenges of expressing joy authentically when every action is dissected and the risk of being labeled insincere, performative, or fake. Her reflections invited viewers to consider not only her actions, but also the mechanisms of judgment and expectation that govern public perception. Throughout her response, Meghan maintained a conversational tone, using humor, anecdote, and emotional candor to engage her audience. She referenced her friendships, the context of the game, and even Harry's more subdued reaction, weaving these elements into a narrative that was both relatable and revealing. She invited the public into her world, offering glimpses of the thought process behind her gestures, the awareness of cameras and spectators, and the internal negotiations that accompany life under scrutiny. It was a masterclass in storytelling. Short, punchy sentences conveyed immediacy and excitement, while longer, reflective passages allowed for introspection and depth. Yet, even as Meghan shared her perspective, she left elements deliberately ambiguous, creating a tension that fueled further curiosity. She did not fully explain the reasons behind every gesture, nor did she attempt to dictate how the public should interpret her actions. Instead, she offered insight without complete resolution, leaving room for debate, speculation, and further examination. This ambiguity was strategic. maintaining engagement while allowing her to assert control over the narrative without fully capitulating to criticism. Direct questions to the audience punctuated her statements, creating a sense of dialogue and inviting viewers to reflect on their own assumptions. "Have you ever been judged for feeling too much joy?" she asked, "or criticized for expressing emotion in a way that others deem inappropriate?" These questions resonated with anyone who has experienced public judgment, while also reinforcing the broader themes of perception, authenticity, and societal expectation. By framing her experience in relatable terms, Meghan extended the conversation beyond celebrity gossip, connecting with audiences on a personal, emotional level. Her approach was not without risk. Addressing criticism directly invites scrutiny, and her carefully crafted response was dissected by commentators across social media, news outlets, and fan communities. Some interpreted her statements as an admission of staging, while others viewed them as a nuanced defense of genuine emotion. The multiplicity of interpretations underscores the difficulty of navigating public perception. Even clarity can be misconstrued, and intention is often secondary to interpretation. For Meghan, every word, every pause, every inflection became part of the ongoing narrative, each element feeding into the complex calculus of authenticity, performance, and public judgment. The emotional beats of her reaction were particularly noteworthy. She expressed joy, vulnerability, humor, and awareness simultaneously, creating a layered, multifaceted narrative that challenged simplistic interpretations. The juxtaposition of exuberance and introspection mirrored the dynamics captured in the viral clip itself. Meghan's outward celebration and the underlying awareness of audience scrutiny. This interplay of external expression and internal reflection became a defining feature of her response, illustrating the tension inherent in a life lived publicly. By the end of her statements, the audience was left with a complex portrait: Meghan as a joyful sports fan, a reflective public figure, and a person acutely aware of how her actions are perceived. She neither fully conceded to accusations nor ignored them. She navigated a middle path that reinforced her authenticity while acknowledging the realities of scrutiny. Her response was as much about reclaiming the narrative as it was about explaining her actions, a careful dance that balanced personal truth with public expectation. Yet even after this measured, insightful response, questions lingered. Was she being entirely candid, or were there layers of performance beneath the surface? How did her relationship with Harry influence her behavior in the moment? And how did public perception shape her later reflections? The answers were not immediately apparent, leaving room for speculation, analysis, and further revelation. In other words, the story was far from over. The viral clip had set the stage, but Meghan's response had only deepened the intrigue, raising new questions while providing insight into her perspective. And just when it seemed like the narrative had settled into this delicate balance of interpretation and reflection, new revelations emerged: small details, insider perspectives, and subtle acknowledgments that would add entirely new dimensions to the story. What came next would not just clarify the events of that evening. It would challenge assumptions, provoke discussion, and reveal sides of Meghan Markle that few had ever seen publicly. In the hours and days following the viral Dodgers clip, one phrase dominated social media, comment sections, and news headlines: staged. It was a word loaded with accusation, judgment, and skepticism, a term that suggested deception, performance, and calculated behavior. Fans and critics alike argued that Meghan Markle's exuberance wasn't simply a reflection of genuine joy. It was a performance meticulously crafted for the cameras, an orchestrated display meant to convey happiness, energy, and relational harmony, all while maintaining the appearance of spontaneity. But what does it mean for something to be staged? And why did so many people immediately assume that Meghan's celebration fell into this category? Understanding the roots of this accusation requires examining psychology, media dynamics, and the history of celebrity scrutiny. The first layer of the accusation comes from the optics of the video itself. Meghan jumps, claps, and cheers with a visible intensity, her hands in the air, her voice carrying over the cheers of the crowd. The camera captures her movements with perfect clarity, seemingly frozen in the most photogenic angles. Her expressions are dramatic, unrestrained, and, to some viewers, almost too perfectly timed. By contrast, Harry's measured, almost subdued reaction creates a visual dichotomy, one partner exuberant, the other restrained. When people view such contrasts in high-resolution, widely shared video, the mind naturally begins to fill in narratives, often leaning toward assumptions of performance when something appears too perfect. In this case, the choreography of her expressions, combined with Harry's calm demeanor, gave critics ample fodder to argue that the moment was contrived. Next comes the social context. Meghan Markle's status as a global figure ensures that nothing she does escapes scrutiny. Every smile, gesture, and reaction has been analyzed, deconstructed, and debated in countless forums, news outlets, and fan communities. Previous controversies surrounding Meghan, whether about her interactions with the royal family, media appearances, or public statements, have created a lens through which every action is viewed. The audience is primed to assume that her behavior may be calculated, intentional, or performative. It's a classic case of confirmation bias. People expect performance, and so they see it, even in genuinely spontaneous moments. The digital environment further amplifies these perceptions. On platforms like X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, moments are captured, cropped, and recontextualized within seconds. A fraction of a second can be looped endlessly, generating narratives that might not have existed in real time. In Meghan's case, the camera angles, the timing, and the editing all contributed to the perception that the celebration had been staged. Critics cited the perfectly timed shots and the way the video captured her at maximum energy as evidence of orchestration. Even casual viewers, scrolling rapidly through feeds, interpreted the clip as suspiciously precise, a performance framed for viral consumption. To understand why this staged claim gained traction, it's important to examine human psychology. People are naturally inclined to question authenticity, especially when someone's behavior seems extraordinary, overly enthusiastic, or at odds with expectation. Meghan's visible joy, amplified by high-definition video and social media sharing, triggered this skepticism. When someone exhibits energy that seems disproportionate to the context, or when their actions appear perfectly captured by cameras, the mind instinctively questions whether the moment is authentic or performed. This is compounded by the public's familiarity with celebrity culture, where staged appearances, PR strategies, and photo opportunities are common. Meghan, as a former actress and royal figure, was seen through this lens, increasing suspicion of her intentions. The role of media commentary cannot be understated. Once the first wave of fake accusations hit social media, news outlets amplified them, turning casual skepticism into widespread debate. Headlines framed the clip as evidence of performative behavior, while talk shows, blogs, and fan forums dissected the minutiae, her posture, her facial expressions, the timing of her cheers. The framing itself shaped perception, leading many viewers to adopt the narrative that Meghan's celebration had been carefully orchestrated. In essence, the media didn't just report the controversy. It created it, highlighting angles and emphasizing contrasts that fueled the argument that the moment was staged. Another factor in this staged argument was the social dynamics of the event itself. The Dodgers' victory was a high-energy, emotionally charged moment. Celebrations at sporting events are often performative by nature. Fans cheer for visibility, respond to surrounding energy, and engage in rituals of collective excitement. Meghan's behavior, while genuine in her personal experience, was also amplified by the context. A friend recording the clip, cameras capturing multiple angles, and the awareness, conscious or subconscious, that the moment could be shared publicly. For critics, this context suggested an intentional performance, a calculated expression of joy designed to create a specific impression. Yet, it's critical to note that accusations of staging often blur the line between perception and reality. A moment can be both authentic and performative. Humans naturally adjust their behavior when aware of observation. Meghan may have been genuinely excited about the Dodgers' win, while also aware that cameras were capturing her reaction. The interplay between spontaneous emotion and self-presentation is complex, especially for public figures. Being staged doesn't necessarily imply deception in the sense of insincerity. It can simply reflect the human tendency to manage how one is perceived when in the public eye. Fans who argued that Meghan staged her celebration often pointed to subtle cues: her timing, the energy contrast with Harry, the seeming perfection of camera angles. Skeptics suggested that she was aware of the optics and adjusted her behavior accordingly. Yet others countered these claims, emphasizing that sports celebrations are unpredictable and that genuine excitement often appears exaggerated when captured on camera. The debate highlighted a fundamental tension between public expectation and private emotion. When is an action real, and when is it performative? For Meghan Markle, this tension is magnified by her position in the public eye, where even small moments are interpreted as statements about character, intention, and authenticity. Adding to the complexity, Meghan's friend Kelly McKee-Zajfan's role in posting the video introduced further speculation. Some critics suggested that the act of sharing the clip was part of a calculated effort to craft a public narrative. Others argued that friends sharing joyful moments is normal, and the intent behind the post did not necessarily imply orchestration. The ambiguity of intent, combined with the viral nature of the clip, created fertile ground for claims of staging, allowing observers to project narratives onto the moment based on preconceived beliefs about Meghan's behavior and persona. The discussion of staging also intersects with gendered expectations and societal double standards. Women in the public eye are often judged more harshly for displays of emotion, especially exuberant or visible joy. What might be considered normal enthusiasm for a male celebrity can be labeled as performative or calculated for a female figure. Meghan's behavior, in this context, was filtered through these biases, intensifying criticism and amplifying the staged narrative. Observers were not merely evaluating the moment itself. They were evaluating it against a backdrop of cultural expectations, previous behavior, and media-driven narratives. Yet, even amid this swirl of skepticism, there were voices defending Meghan, pointing out that the energy she displayed was consistent with someone experiencing a genuine moment of happiness. Sports celebrations are, by nature, dramatic, unrestrained, and sometimes exaggerated. The very intensity that some interpreted as staged could just as easily be understood as authentic excitement. Moreover, the contrast with Harry's calm demeanor did not necessarily indicate performance. It might simply reflect personality differences, sports allegiance, or individual styles of expressing emotion. Ultimately, the staging accusation is emblematic of a broader cultural phenomenon: the difficulty of discerning authenticity in a hypermediated world. In a society where cameras capture every gesture, and where millions of people interpret and judge behavior instantly, the boundary between spontaneous emotion and perceived performance becomes blurred. Meghan Markle's Dodgers celebration is a perfect case study of this dynamic. The video itself is simple, the emotion straightforward, yet public perception complicates everything, turning a joyful moment into a global debate about authenticity, intention, and image management. And while the initial accusations of staging dominated headlines, they also set the stage for Meghan's next move, the moment when she would directly confront, clarify, and expand upon the narrative that had grown around her. What she revealed next would challenge assumptions, shift perceptions, and force the world to reconsider what was real, what was performed, and what was somewhere in between. The video of Meghan Markle celebrating the Dodgers World Series win might have been remarkable in isolation, but its impact was magnified by one striking contrast: Prince Harry's subdued demeanor. While Meghan jumped, waved her arms, and laughed with uncontainable enthusiasm, Harry remained calm, composed, and seemingly indifferent. His posture was measured, his expressions minimal, and his energy restrained. For viewers, this contrast became a focal point, sparking debates about his engagement in the moment, his relationship with Meghan, and, more broadly, the dynamics of public perception and authenticity. Harry's reaction, or apparent lack thereof, invited scrutiny for several reasons. First, it defied the expected behavior of a sports fan witnessing a victory by their opponent. As a known Blue Jays supporter, Harry's team had lost, and yet he did not display overt disappointment or visible frustration. Some interpreted his calm as respect for Meghan's excitement, a measured display of sportsmanship, or simply a personality trait. Not everyone expresses emotion in the same way. Others, however, speculated that his The contrast between Harry and Meghan also amplified the staged accusation surrounding Meghan's celebration. Critics suggested that the more subdued Harry highlighted the performative nature of Meghan's enthusiasm. "She's overcompensating for him," one commenter wrote. "Look at her, trying too hard while he's just standing there." This interpretation, however, fails to consider human variation. People experience and display emotion differently. Harry may simply have a calmer temperament or may have chosen to moderate his reaction in a social setting. What some saw as indifference could just as easily be discretion, self-control, or even private amusement. Beyond the immediate optics, Harry's reaction also reflects the complex dynamics of living in the public eye. He has spent his life under relentless scrutiny, learning that every gesture can be interpreted, misinterpreted, or weaponized. In this sense, restraint is a survival mechanism, a way of navigating highly visible moments without creating unintended controversy. Meghan's exuberance, by contrast, was visible, audible, and undeniably expressive, making her behavior a magnet for attention. In pairing their reactions, the public naturally constructed a narrative: the excited wife and the detached husband, the performed joy versus the calm reality. Yet such simplifications overlook the nuances of human behavior. Insiders have suggested that Harry's subdued response may have been influenced by multiple factors beyond temperament. Sports allegiance certainly played a role. He was, after all, supporting the losing team. Additionally, the presence of cameras, friends, and media meant that every gesture could be interpreted and circulated worldwide. Harry's measured approach may have been a conscious choice to maintain composure under observation, preserving dignity while allowing Meghan to express herself fully. This dynamic reflects not just personality but experience. A man acutely aware of public attention, juxtaposed with a woman navigating both her personal joy and public perception. The public reaction to Harry's behavior was as divided as the opinions on Meghan's. Some fans praised him for maintaining poise, interpreting his calm as evidence of maturity, respect, or understanding. Others criticized him for being disinterested or detached, arguing that his lack of visible engagement undermined the sense of shared celebration. Online debates ranged from humor to judgment. Memes circulated showing Meghan leaping energetically while Harry stood motionless, captions mocking his stoicism or contrasting their energies in exaggerated ways. The scrutiny highlighted the dual pressures of celebrity and expectation. Every action, or inaction, carries meaning, whether intended or imagined. Interestingly, Harry's restrained demeanor also added layers of intrigue to the staged debate. If Meghan's celebration was genuine, why did she appear so dramatically energized compared to her husband? Critics used his calm as evidence that her performance was over the top, a deliberate effort to project joy. Supporters countered that the disparity was natural, two individuals responding differently to the same event, one extroverted and expressive, the other introspective and composed. The truth, as is often the case with such moments, lies somewhere in between, a mix of personality, context, awareness of observation, and genuine emotion. This moment also reflects the broader dynamics of couples in the public eye. Partnerships are under constant surveillance, with audiences interpreting gestures, expressions, and interactions as statements about compatibility, affection, and harmony. Meghan and Harry's public personas are meticulously scrutinized, and even a brief video can spark extensive analysis. The energy contrast in the Dodgers clip became a metaphor, in some minds, for the perceived dynamics of their relationship: passion versus restraint, spectacle versus subtlety, dramatics versus authenticity. Whether fair or accurate, these interpretations shape public perception and amplify the stakes for every subsequent public action. There is also an element of cultural expectation. Sports celebrations, particularly in North American contexts, are associated with visible, demonstrative emotion. Exuberance, jumping, and cheering are socially sanctioned expressions of joy. Harry's more restrained approach, while normal in some cultural or personal contexts, appeared muted in contrast to Meghan's expressive energy. This disparity, magnified by camera angles and social media commentary, created the perception of imbalance and, for some observers, reinforced the idea that Meghan's behavior was staged to fill a void of excitement. Yet the narrative of detachment is complicated by context. Some insiders have noted that Harry, while seemingly composed, did display small, subtle signs of enjoyment. A nod, a quiet smile, a muted clap. These understated cues can easily be missed by casual viewers or lost in rapid video loops shared online. The difference between visible exuberance and quiet participation often becomes exaggerated when interpreted through a lens of suspicion, especially in viral media moments. In other words, Harry's calm did not necessarily indicate disinterest. It may have reflected his style, his awareness of observation, or his measured approach to public emotion. The broader takeaway is that perception is never purely objective. Every audience member brings biases, expectations, and preconceptions to their interpretation of a public moment. Meghan's energy, Harry's restraint, the camera angles, the social media commentary, all combined to create a narrative that was as much about audience perception as it was about reality. For Meghan and Harry, navigating this dynamic is an ongoing challenge, requiring awareness, strategy, and, at times, restraint. But while Harry's demeanor fueled speculation about Meghan's performance, it also set the stage for further revelations. His subtlety contrasted with her energy, but it also invited reflection. Why do we read certain behaviors as fake or staged, and others as authentic? How much does public expectation shape perception? And, most importantly, how would Meghan respond to both the criticism of her behavior and the interpretations of Harry's response? In the digital age, no moment exists in isolation, and Meghan Markle's Dodgers celebration was no exception. Within hours of the clip being posted, social media erupted. Every platform, X, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, buzzed with commentary, speculation, memes, and debates. What might have been a private, joyful moment became a global spectacle, dissected in real time by millions of users with smartphones, opinions, and the instant reach of the internet. The velocity and intensity of the response demonstrated how social media can amplify perception, exaggerate contrasts, and create narratives that feel urgent, immediate, and often inescapable. The explosion began almost immediately after the video's release. Observers on X, formerly Twitter, were the first to comment, posting reactions ranging from amusement to outrage. Some users mocked Meghan's exuberance. "Looks so fake. She is so fake." And "oh my gosh, look how happy we are and so into each other." Others questioned the timing of the camera, suggesting the clip was deliberately filmed to highlight her energy. Cameras constantly filming every moment. These initial reactions quickly snowballed into a trending topic, generating tens of thousands of retweets, comments, and likes within the first few hours. The velocity was staggering. Social media's architecture, designed to reward engagement and virality, ensured that each reaction, whether supportive, critical, or sarcastic, amplified the attention on the video. TikTok users were equally active, remixing the clip with humorous audio, captions, and visual effects. Memes highlighting the contrast between Meghan and Harry went viral, portraying her as over-the-top or theatrical while depicting him as stoic, bored, or disinterested. These visual jokes, while comedic, reinforced existing narratives about staged behavior and public performance. In online culture, humor often functions as critique, and the memes became a way for audiences to process, simplify, and comment on complex dynamics in a digestible, shareable form. The rapid circulation of these images ensured that the narrative of staged versus real reached millions who may not have even seen the original clip. Instagram followed suit, with screenshots, story reposts, and comments sections filling with debates. Fans divided into factions, some defending Meghan's genuine excitement, others attacking it as artificial or calculated. Influencers and micro-celebrities offered their own commentary, framing the video as a lesson in media literacy, celebrity behavior, or social expectations. Across the platform, the discussion was dynamic, iterative, and self-reinforcing. Each new post referenced the previous ones, creating a feedback loop in which perceptions hardened and narratives solidified. The phenomenon exemplified what experts call the echo chamber effect, where opinions are amplified and validated through repetition, often independent of objective reality. Reddit threads emerged analyzing the video with surgical precision. Users examined frame-by-frame clips, paused at micro-expressions, and debated subtle gestures. The comments often read like forensic examinations. Look at her hand movements. They're too coordinated. Notice how Harry barely claps. It's like he's performing restraint. The angle of the camera suggests deliberate framing. These threads turned casual observation into investigative analysis, blending humor, skepticism, and obsession. The level of scrutiny applied to a 30-second clip of a sports celebration was unprecedented, highlighting both the reach of social media and the intensity of interest in Meghan's every move. YouTube commentary videos also emerged rapidly. Creators posted reaction videos, breakdowns, and speculative essays, some with millions of views within a day. Titles like Meghan Markle Exposed, World Series Celebration Gone Wrong, and Is Meghan Markle Faking Joy Again framed the clip as evidence of manipulation or performance. The videos combined analysis, speculation, and dramatization, often using slow-motion playback, zoom-ins, and emphatic voiceovers to highlight perceived discrepancies between Meghan's behavior and Harry's. The algorithms rewarded engagement, pushing these videos to wider audiences and perpetuating the cycle of attention. One of the most fascinating aspects of the social media explosion was the interplay between real reactions and mediated interpretations. Some users defended Meghan, emphasizing that her joy was authentic, relatable, and even charming. Comments like, "I love that she gets excited, it's human, and everyone expresses joy differently," offered counterpoints to the accusations of staging. Yet, even these supportive voices often referenced public scrutiny, acknowledging that the video would inevitably be interpreted in multiple ways. Social media, in this sense, became both a battlefield and a mirror, a space where narratives are contested, but also a reflection of the broader cultural biases, expectations, and assumptions that shape perception. The backlash also extended beyond casual viewers to journalists, pundits, and online commentators. Columns and opinion pieces debated the meaning of authenticity, the pressures of public performance, and the dynamics of Meghan and Harry's relationship. Headlines framed the moment as emblematic of larger patterns. Meghan Markle's celebrations, authentic or staged, and Duchess of Sussex under fire again for public display. In covering the story, media outlets further amplified attention, providing context, quotes, and analysis that reinforced the viral narrative while offering readers a lens through which to interpret the clip. The rapid amplification of the debate revealed the power of social media to shape perception. A single, spontaneous, or seemingly spontaneous moment can be dissected, transformed, and weaponized in ways that the original participants may never have anticipated. Meghan's celebration, once a private act of joy shared among friends, became a global event, subject to intense judgment and interpretation. The speed and intensity of online response underscored the stakes of public life. Every gesture is visible, every action is interpreted, and every response contributes to a broader narrative that may feel beyond control. Another dimension of the social media explosion was the creation of online communities devoted entirely to discussing Meghan Markle. Fan groups, gossip forums, and commentary channels flourished, analyzing not only the Dodgers video, but its implications for her personal brand, her relationship with Harry, and her public persona. These communities often reinforced one-sided interpretations, creating echo chambers in which skepticism, humor, or admiration was amplified without counterbalance. The resulting discourse shaped not only perception but also cultural memory. The viral clip would be remembered not as a fleeting celebration, but as a defining moment in Meghan's public narrative. Amid this frenzy, the Duchess's own team faced strategic choices. How should they respond, if at all? Should they clarify, ignore, or capitalize on the attention? Every decision carried risk. Responding could perpetuate the controversy, while silence could allow criticism to dominate. The viral nature of social media creates a paradox for public figures. Attention is unavoidable, interpretation is uncontrollable, and narrative influence is limited by perception. Meghan's eventual responses would need to navigate these dynamics carefully, balancing authenticity, vulnerability, and image management in a high-stakes environment. Ultimately, the social media explosion surrounding the Dodgers clip highlights how a simple human moment, joy at a sports victory, can become a global spectacle in the digital era. Every gesture, contrast, and expression becomes a point of analysis. Every viewer a potential critic, every post a potential amplifier. The virality of Meghan's celebration demonstrates both the reach of modern platforms and the intensity of public fascination with celebrity authenticity, performance, and personal expression. And just as the online discourse seemed to reach a fever pitch, new developments emerged. Friends, insiders, and even Meghan herself would soon contribute additional layers of context, confession, and explanation, details that promised to challenge assumptions, ignite further debate, and deepen the public's understanding of the moment in ways no one expected. As the social media frenzy reached its peak, voices from Meghan Markle's inner circle began to emerge, offering insights, clarifications, and perspectives that were otherwise hidden from the public eye. Friends, confidants, and close associates became essential sources for understanding what truly transpired during that Dodgers celebration. Their accounts provided context, challenged misinterpretations, and revealed emotional subtleties that the viral clip alone could never convey. It was as if a veil had been lifted, allowing the world a glimpse behind the carefully curated public image of the Duchess. The first insider statements came cautiously. Friends emphasized that Meghan is a passionate sports fan, someone who invests deeply in her interests and experiences. Her exuberance, they explained, was not a calculated performance, but a spontaneous expression of joy, amplified by her natural energy and enthusiasm. One close friend noted, Meghan doesn't hold back when she's genuinely excited. She wears her emotions openly. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's always real. These testimonials directly countered the narrative of staging, highlighting the difference between authenticity and perception in the age of viral media. Kelly McKee-Zajfan, the friend who shared the original clip, offered additional context. She explained that the video was recorded informally, without pre-planning, simply capturing a moment that happened organically during the Dodgers celebration. The intent, she said, was purely to preserve a joyful memory, not to manufacture content for public consumption. Yet, the post's viral trajectory revealed the unpredictable nature of sharing moments online. What began as a private recording became a global spectacle, subject to judgment, commentary, and analysis far beyond its original scope. The disconnect between intention and reception became a central theme, illustrating how even genuine moments can be misinterpreted in the digital era. Other friends echoed similar sentiments, emphasizing the couple's dynamic in public and private spaces. They described Meghan and Harry as partners who often navigate differences in temperament and expression. Where Meghan is openly expressive, Harry is more reserved, a contrast that has always been present and should not be read as tension, conflict, or imbalance. He's thoughtful, she's exuberant, one insider explained. It's just who they are. People reading too much into it are missing the normalcy of their relationship. This perspective reframed the viral clip, suggesting that the public's fixation on contrast between their reactions obscured the authenticity of both individuals' experiences. The insiders also shed light on the pressures of being constantly observed. Meghan and Harry have long lived under intense scrutiny, and even private moments can become public fodder. Friends described the couple's awareness of cameras and social media as a constant consideration, influencing behavior without entirely constraining genuine emotion. Meghan, according to insiders, is particularly conscious of how her expressions might be interpreted, which may explain the polished but heartfelt nature of her gestures. This awareness, however, does not negate authenticity. It merely reflects the realities of life in the global spotlight. Beyond personality and context, friends provided insights into the emotional stakes of the Dodgers celebration itself. For Meghan, the game represented more than a casual sports event. It was a rare opportunity to experience unfiltered joy in a social setting, surrounded by friends. The energy she displayed was amplified by shared excitement, group dynamics, and the adrenaline of witnessing a live sporting victory. According to insiders, this combination of factors created an intensity that was reserved energy contributed to the perception that Meghan's exuberance was exaggerated or staged. By juxtaposing their behaviors, The video created a narrative of imbalance that fueled discussion and controversy. Body language experts quickly weighed in. They observed the subtle cues in Harry's posture, the slight shrug of his shoulders, the measured claps, and the occasional nod of acknowledgement toward Meghan's movements. Some argued these gestures conveyed detachment. Others suggested they reflected quiet amusement or understated enjoyment. The interpretation of body language is inherently subjective, especially in high-pressure, public contexts. Yet the global audience was relentless in dissecting every motion, every glance, and every smile. For a man whose every action is scrutinized, even subtle behaviors can take on outsized significance. Entirely natural, yet appeared exaggerated when captured on video. The disconnect between lived experience and public interpretation became evident. What felt organic in the moment could be perceived as theatrical when viewed in isolation. Some insiders went further, addressing the criticism head-on. They expressed frustration at the quickness with which this staged narrative took hold, noting that the viral clip offered only a fraction of the story. People are seeing 30 seconds and drawing conclusions about an entire personality, one friend said. It's not just unfair, it's misleading. Meghan is genuine, emotional, and human. That's all there is to it. These statements not only defended Meghan but also highlighted a broader cultural issue: the tendency to oversimplify, sensationalize, and misinterpret the behaviors of public figures, particularly women. The friends' perspectives also reinforced the idea that public perception is not always aligned with reality. Meghan's gestures, while visually striking, were rooted in genuine emotion. Her energy, though intense, reflected her authentic response to an exciting event. Harry's calm demeanor, by contrast, reflected his personality and approach to public moments. The viral clip, stripped of its broader context, failed to capture these nuances, leaving viewers with an incomplete and often distorted understanding of the event. Perhaps most importantly, the insider accounts revealed Meghan's awareness of the broader implications of the clip. Friends described her mixed feelings in the aftermath: joy at sharing a memorable moment with loved ones, coupled with apprehension about how the video would be received online. The duality of experiencing authentic happiness while anticipating public judgment underscores the emotional complexity of living under constant surveillance. Meghan, like many public figures, must navigate the tension between personal experience and audience expectation, a balance that is both delicate and emotionally taxing. These insights also illuminated the strategic decisions behind Meghan's later public statements. Her responses were not reactive or defensive in a superficial sense. They were carefully crafted to address misperceptions, provide context, and assert control over the narrative. By sharing her perspective, she reclaimed agency, bridging the gap between private experience and public interpretation. Friends described this approach as thoughtful, deliberate, and emotionally intelligent, emphasizing Meghan's ability to navigate complex social and media landscapes with nuance and authenticity. In the midst of social media speculation, these insider perspectives offered a counter-narrative, one that emphasized authenticity over performance, emotion over calculation, and context over sensationalism. They reminded the public that what appears on screen is rarely the full story, and that human behavior, especially in high-pressure, highly visible contexts, is layered, multifaceted, and often misunderstood. By highlighting Meghan's genuine excitement, her awareness of observation, and the natural contrasts between her and Harry, Friends provided a deeper, more empathetic lens through which to view the viral clip. Yet, even as these insider accounts clarified the moment, they also hinted at unresolved tensions. Questions remained. How would the public respond to this context? Could explanations and testimonials undo the viral narrative of staging? And most provocatively, how would Meghan herself address these issues in a way that satisfied both critics and supporters, while remaining true to her personal experience? The stage was set for the next chapter of the story, one in which Meghan's voice would play a decisive role in shaping perception, challenging assumptions, and potentially transforming the narrative entirely. The anticipation was palpable. After days of speculation, online debates, and media frenzy, the world waited for Meghan Markle to speak. The viral Dodgers clip had ignited intense discussion, and every second of silence added fuel to the fire. Fans, Critics and casual observers alike were eager for clarity. What would she say? Would she defend herself, apologize, or lean into the criticism? When Meghan finally broke her silence, her words were calculated yet heartfelt, candid yet controlled, and they immediately reshaped the conversation. Meghan began by addressing the core accusation head-on, the claim that her celebration had been staged. Rather than denying the joy she exhibited, she embraced it, affirming that her exuberance was real. "I was genuinely thrilled," she said. "It was an incredible moment, and I couldn't contain my excitement. Sometimes joy just overflows, and that's exactly what happened." Her tone was conversational, almost intimate, bridging the gap between the public and her private experience. By acknowledging the authenticity of her emotions, she reframed the debate from performance versus fakery to human expression versus interpretation. Yet Meghan did not ignore the backlash. She openly recognized the scrutiny that comes with being a public figure, reflecting on the ways her actions are magnified, interpreted, and often criticized. "Living in the public eye means everything you do is analyzed, every smile questioned, every gesture dissected," she said. This acknowledgement was crucial. It showed self-awareness, transparency, and the emotional labor inherent in her position. She painted a vivid picture of the pressures of constant observation, reminding the audience that public figures navigate complex dynamics in every action, intentional or spontaneous. What made her public statement particularly compelling was her use of emotional nuance. Meghan did not frame the criticism as an attack on her character. Instead, she reflected on the human experience of being misjudged, misunderstood, and scrutinized. "It's exhausting to live in a world where joy can be mistaken for performance," she said. Her words resonated with anyone who has felt that their authentic emotions were questioned, offering relatability amidst the high-stakes drama of celebrity scrutiny. Through empathy and storytelling, she shifted the conversation from gossip to shared human experience. Humor played a subtle but powerful role in her response. Meghan referenced the contrast between her celebration and Harry's more subdued demeanor, doing so in a way that was self-aware without being defensive. "Harry may have been calm, but that's just his style," she remarked with a smile. This acknowledgement of differences reinforced the authenticity of both reactions while diffusing tension. It reminded the audience that people express joy differently, and that a quieter response is not inherently less genuine. The humor softened the narrative, creating a humanizing dimension that was often missing in online commentary. Meghan also used her statement to challenge assumptions about staging and performance. She explained that public figures naturally adjust behavior when under observation, but that such adjustments do not negate authenticity. "Just because I'm aware of the cameras doesn't mean my excitement is fake," she said. This distinction is critical. Awareness of observation is part of the human experience, especially for celebrities, yet it does not diminish the reality of emotions. By clarifying this nuance, Meghan reframed the staged accusation, providing insight into the psychology of public life and the misinterpretation of visible emotion. She reinforced this point with anecdotes and storytelling, describing the energy of the moment, the shared excitement among friends, and the personal significance of witnessing the Dodgers' victory. Her narrative drew the audience into the experience, allowing them to feel the rush of adrenaline, the jubilation of scoring moments, and the communal thrill of celebrating with loved ones. These descriptive passages created immersion, bridging the gap between distant observers and lived experience. Viewers could almost hear the cheers, feel the movement, and share in her elation. Direct audience engagement was another key strategy. Meghan posed questions that invited reflection and empathy. Have you ever been told your excitement is too much, or that your joy is performative? How does that feel? By turning the narrative toward shared experience, she fostered connection, encouraging the public to consider the broader implications of judgment and misinterpretation. These rhetorical questions prompted introspection, subtly shifting the focus from critique to understanding. The emotional cadence of her response was deliberate. Short, punchy sentences conveyed immediacy and urgency, while longer, reflective passages allowed for depth and nuance. The combination of energy and contemplation mirrored the contrast seen in the viral clip, outward expression paired with inner awareness. By structuring her response in this way, Meghan maintained engagement while delivering a layered, multidimensional narrative. Audiences were drawn in by the emotional highs, reflective pauses, and candid insights, experiencing the story as both spectacle and introspection. Media outlets and social platforms immediately responded. Headlines captured the tone and implications of her statement. Meghan Markle speaks out, "My joy was real," and Duchess breaks silence amid viral backlash. Clips from her statement were circulated widely, and social media buzz intensified. But this time, the conversation shifted. Supportive voices amplified her message, defending her authenticity and highlighting the misinterpretation of her gestures. Critics remained, but Meghan's direct engagement added depth, context, and nuance, challenging simplistic narratives of fakery or performance. Her response also demonstrated strategic narrative control. By acknowledging criticism, embracing authenticity, using humor, and connecting with the audience, Meghan reclaimed agency over the viral moment. She framed the discussion, set the tone, and asserted her perspective while leaving room for interpretation. The result was a careful balance of transparency and control, emotional resonance and factual clarity, authenticity and public strategy. In doing so, she transformed a viral controversy into an opportunity for connection, reflection, and narrative correction. Perhaps most importantly, Meghan left the audience with lingering curiosity. She hinted at future insights and perspectives, signaling that this story was not complete. "There's more to these moments than meets the eye," she said. "And sometimes the story unfolds differently than anyone expects." Her words